Humanity has many daunting tasks ahead in the coming century. The world community of nations faces powerful challenges in the 21st century, challenges that must be met if humanity is to progress to new levels of social and spiritual development. What is often forgotten in discussions of these issues is how central the institution of the family is to meeting each and every one of them. Without strong families, governments will be hard-pressed to meet any of the major challenges they face in the coming decades. The organizers of the Inaugural World Convention of the Family Federation for World Peace, the Summit Council for World Peace, the Women's Federation for World Peace, and the Washington Times Foundation recognized that the time was ripe to discuss the subject of family values, what it means, what its implications are, and how it can help humankind meet the pressing challenges of the next century. Attendees from 172 nations joined for 2 days, sharing ideas and personal reflections as they examined the global implications of family values in the 21st century. The overall theme of the conference, which emerged in the remarks of one speaker after another, was the recognition of a challenge simple in essence, but towering in its difficulty. In a rapidly changing, globalizing information age, a time that challenges existing authorities, prompts alienation in many people, and drives societies in the direction of moral relativism, how can we create a new ethic of family values appropriate to the times?
The agricultural revolution lasted 10,000 years and is still ongoing in many parts of the world. The industrial revolution and the rise of the modern nation state is only 200 years old, which has already been replaced by the information revolution that is only 15 years old. Now, as we're about to enter the 21st century, we see that the nation state is too small to solve the big problems and too big for the small problems. The nation state can no longer protect the weakest by reducing inequalities and redistributing wealth. Social security systems are crumbling under the weight of deficits. Nation states can no longer regulate their economies. That role has fallen victim to globalization. At the same time, corruption is weakening the capacity of the state to embody the nation. If current trends persist, we may soon be faced with the dilemma of having to choose between the free market and the free society.
This concern for our future and the need for families throughout the world to regain control of their lives was voiced by leaders, commentators, educators, and entertainers who stressed that solutions to many of today's problems lie in a renewed emphasis on traditional family values.
While the world's finest athletes test themselves in Atlanta, this gathering is sort of a spiritual Olympics. Like the Olympians, you have assembled from all over the world to further the cause of peace among nations. But while those Olympians are dedicated to gold and glory, you in this room pursue other objectives. The glory you seek comes from God, not gold. If at times I sound a bit like an Old Testament prophet, it's because there is nothing about which I feel more strongly, more deeply than the survival and the strengthening of the family. No civilization that neglects the family can be called civilized for long, and no political philosophy that takes the family for granted will be taken seriously by anyone who values morality, compassion, and peace.
President Ford's remarks were echoed by numerous world leaders who spoke before an assembly of concerned attendees at the opening plenary session. Statesmen, including the United Kingdom's former Prime Minister, Sir Edward Heath, Canada's former Governor-General, Edward Schreyer, and Germany's former President, Sir Richard von Weizsäcker, were joined by religious leaders, including Reverend Sung Myung Moon, co-founder of the Family Federation for World Peace, and Dr. Robert Schuller, founder of the Crystal Cathedral. Also participating, Susan Ford Bales, National Spokesperson for Cancer Awareness, and former United States Representative to the United Nations Commission on Women, Maureen Reagan.
To achieve a peaceful world, we must pay attention to the needs of families throughout the world. Family is the foundation of society, and at its center is the woman. At a time when the world is looking for a new perspective in leadership, women are taking a prominent role. The Women's Federation for World Peace and now the Family Federation for World Peace give two powerful voices to the women of the world. And so I hope that you will help me welcome to this podium a woman who unites within herself the strength of a loving wife and mother with the grandeur of a vision of the world's transformation. A woman whose life represents a model of service and humanity. Ladies and gentlemen, a woman for all seasons, whom I am proud to call my friend, Mrs. Hak Jahan Moon.
Today, we have come together to encourage all people to deepen their understanding of the importance of the family as the cradle of human life and the foundation for a peaceful world society. It is my hope that at this gathering, we will begin to find a way to build true families that are healthy and vibrant in the love of God. Originally, true love was to be gained through life experience and understood through eternal realization. True love is not something that can be learned through words or written text or schooling. It is experienced completely only in life. Created as newborn infants, Adam and Eve were to grow and perfect themselves gradually through experiences of the heart of true children, true brother and sister, true husband and wife, and true parents, encompassing their whole lives. Only after experiencing the true love of God in its entirety can one perfect of a purpose of creation and become an ideal human being. Achieving the highest ideal of human love is possible only when one takes responsibility for love. We can think of this responsibility in three ways. The first responsibility is for one to become the master of true love, truly free and thanking God for the freedom of love and knowing how to cultivate and control oneself. This responsibility for a love relationship should not be taken merely because of law or social convention. Instead, a person should establish responsibility through his own self-control and self-determination within the life-committing vertical relationship with God. Second is one's responsibility toward the object of love. By nature, people do not want their spouse's love to be shared with others. Horizontal conjugal love, which differs from the vertical love between parents and children, loses its potential for perfection the moment it is divided. This is because the principle of creation requires husband and wife to become one in absolute love. Each spouse has the responsibility given by love to live absolutely for the sake of the other. The third responsibility of love is toward children. The love of parents is the basis for children's pride and happiness. They would wish to be born through the total and harmonious unity of their parents in true love, and they would wish to be raised in that kind of love. The most precious responsibility of parents is not only to rear their children externally, but also to offer them life elements of true love that can perfect their spirituality. This is why the family is so valuable. The daily experience of the heart of true children, true brothers and sisters, true spouses, and true parents cannot be acquired in any place other than the true family.
Throughout the day, attendees met to further examine the issues, explore the next steps to be taken by the Federation, and hear from international leaders, including United Nations Ambassador and President of the Association for Unity of Latin America, Jose Maria Chavez, Costa Rica's former President, Oscar Arias, and United States Vice Presidential candidate, Jack Kemp. Despite the numerous negative forces embattling families, many attendees expressed hope for the future. Day 2 of the World Convention began with an optimistic prediction by former United States President George Bush that despite all the problems we face, our best days lie ahead. Strong families are indispensable to the success of other social institutions. The second full plenary session examined the connections between the health of families and the critical social institutions of government and education. Speaking on these issues were Hong Kong's former Secretary for Health and Welfare, Elizabeth Wong, Mexico's former President, Luis Echeverria, Cameroon's former Vice President, Solomon Muna, Boston University President, Dr. John Silber, Colombia's former Prime Minister, Dr. Rodrigo Escobar Navia, and Australia's former Prime Minister, Sir John Gorton.
Because if the family teaches, as it's supposed to teach, responsibility, so does the family teach morality. And if it teaches morality and teaches us how to use our minds to check the morality we are asked to support, so does government come into the equation, because we will expect it to govern according to the family's ideas of morality.
Over and over, speakers such as Guideposts magazine chairperson Ruth Stafford Peel and Olympic gold medalist and motivational speaker Dan Jansen challenged attendees to move beyond rhetoric, to not just talk of change, but to set goals and work steadily to achieve those goals.
And one Sunday we were out there running the hill, and my coach, we had probably run the hill 10 or 12 times, and he looks at his watch and he says, okay, 30 seconds, we're going again, all the way to the top. I looked at him, I said, Coach, I can't make it up to the top again. And he said, you know what you're doing? He said, you're looking at the top of the hill the whole time you're running. He said, look up there before you start. He said, you want to know where you want to be. You want to know where you want to end up. But once you know that, he said, look 10 feet in front of you. He said, pretty soon you're going to look up and you're going to be at the top of the hill. Our goal here today is not, it can't be done in one day, probably not even in a year. It's a long-term goal, and you have to take it step by step.
During the afternoon, conference speakers, including Pennsylvania's former governor, Robert Casey, urged attendees to consider the critical importance of society's influences on families.
Family and marriage. Overpowering words. Regal in their simplicity and their reach and the profound nature of their implications. I thought of what a wise man said not too many years ago. He was asked, tell me, what is the greatest gift that a father can give to his children? That was the question put to the wise man. And the wise man responded, the greatest gift that a father can give to his children is to love their mother. And I think if I could sum up in microcosm the meaning of everything we're going to be talking about here today, it is simply that. So it's not too much to say that the challenge that the world and America and her people face to begin the reconstitution of marriage and the family will determine the future of the world.
Attendees participating in the Family and Religious Values session heard from Dr. Jude Doherty, Dean, School of Philosophy at the Catholic University of America, Datuk Paduka Saleha from National Muslim Women Welfare, Malaysia, Nobel Peace Laureate Betty Williams, and Boston Herald editorial writer Don Feder. Speakers for the Family and the Media session included France's former Minister of Government, Philippe Melot, author Diane Medved, the Family Research Council's president, Dr. Gary Bauer, and Dr. Tomas McHale, professor of journalistic ethics at the Catholic University of Chile. Participants in the Family and Marriage session included the Christian Coalition's executive director, Dr. Ralph Reed, the Concerned Women for America's president, Dr. Beverly LaHaye, and from Stanford University, the chairman of the advisory board, Dr. Sanford Dornbush.
Marriage provides a counterweight to some of the central problems of individualism in modern societies, fragmentation, as Governor Casey put it. Marriage links people in long-lasting partnerships that overcome the loneliness and separation that is the usual product of the impersonal and fleeting relations that are part of contemporary society. Marriage is here to stay. And it's not just an agreement between two people. Rather, it's a community project, as you see every time you attend a wedding. At the wedding, families and friends pledge to support the union of the two newlyweds. And the stability of the marriage is a community goal, not just a goal of the couple.
In addition to attending the sessions, delegates from 172 nations convened a General Assembly to formally establish the Family Federation for World Peace and elect its first president, Reverend Chung Hwan Kwok.
Our federation must be dedicated to educating all people in the concept and the practice of true love and support activities which would encourage men and women in this practice and to work together in harmony to solve the practical social problems that they face. We must urge everyone to join together as members of this federation and to participate in the International Blessing for World Peace, which will be held in November 1997.
Following a closing plenary session featuring Dr. Coretta Scott King, founder of the King Center for Nonviolence, was a farewell banquet saluting the founders of the Family Federation for World Peace. The banquet featured entertainment with a family focus.
And send some poor guy crashing through the ceiling. Thank heaven for little girls. Thank heaven for them all, no matter where, no matter who. Without them,
what would little boys do?
And I just thought it would be nice, if it's all right with this gentleman. I must ask his permission first. I think it's good for Mr. Boone to meet Mr. Moon. Thank you. Is it all right with you if I give these to Mrs. Moon? Let me ask. Good. Let me ask, Have you ever heard this song, April Love?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Prior to a farewell message by Reverend Moon, Dr. Bo-hee Pak, president of the Summit Council for World Peace, gave testimony to the accomplishments of the Reverend and Mrs. Sung Myung Moon.
Reverend Moon had dedicated his entire life as a peacemaker and a unifier. This family federation is not the only federation he began. He first founded the Federation for World Peace in 1991. He continued to found in a religious federation for world peace, the Women's Federation for World Peace, the Youth Federation for World Peace, of course, the Federation of Island Nations for World Peace, and finally and ultimately, this family federation, World Peace. I say ultimate because it is Reverend and Mrs. Moon's view that a strong moral family is the very fabric of a moral and healthy society, nation, and the world. You can see you have participated in the best and the crowning event these past 3 days in Washington, which will have worldwide impact.
Reverend Moon always listens to experts. They tell him what cannot be done and why it cannot be done, and then he goes ahead and does it. Ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome for Reverend Moon.
We all say that God's attributes include being absolute, unchanging, unique, and eternal. And who is the owner of love? Is it man? Is it woman? Absolutely not. To whom does love belong? Who is the owner of love? God. God is not two beings. There is only one God. Love is the mediator which can unite God and man. This is because God needs love as much as man needs love. Through love, God and man can meet. God needs absolute love. What about us? Do you absolutely need love? Since God needs love that is absolute, unique, eternal, and unchanging, then we, as children of God, also need love that is absolute, unique, eternal, and unchanging. God has dual characteristics of positivity and negativity. So therefore, when God created man, man was a manifestation of this dual characteristic, plus became male, minus female, in the creation of man and woman. God wanted to see this horizontal love relationship completed, as well as the vertical relationship established in the physical world. That is why man has a physical body. We all have a conscience, however, which relates vertically to God. This is the vertical axis for man. God's absolute love always travels through this vertical axis, not through horizontal relationships. Therefore, the meeting point between God and man on the vertical axis and the meeting point between man and woman on the horizontal axis is the same point. This is the point to be created when man grows from childhood to adulthood. When man and woman attain adulthood, they become one through marriage. And it is at this point that man can also meet God, through establishing the vertical axis. It is at this same point where we find happiness, freedom, and unification. Only by centering on this absolute love can God be happy. Also, the object of absolute love to God, that is man and woman, can be happy. This very central point is where God and man, husband and wife, brother and sister all meet. This point is the center point from which spherical movement is created. In the Oriental tradition, we call the relationship between parents and children one. Parents and children are one.
Husband and wife are one. Brothers and sisters are also one. They are one based on what? Based on this center point where vertical and horizontal meet. This is the point of true love. The relationship between God and man is one of father and son, parents and children, centering on what? True love. Why is marriage important? Because through our marriage, we find love. We learn how to love. We find our life there. Through marriage, man's life and woman's life become one. It is through marriage that the lineage of your family tree is created. Only through that lineage can you create the individual, your family, your nation, and your world. It is a universal formula, therefore, that centering on love, parents and children, husbands and wives, brothers, and sisters all become one in your family. Only when that happens will God come down to your family level and dwell in your family with your family. Then, when you all pass into the spirit world, you will go to the spirit world with God. That is the place we call the kingdom of God in heaven. However, because the world is lacking this understanding, there is no absolute unity centering on true love in your families, in your society, in your nation, and in your world. That is why the kingdom of God in heaven is still vacant.
With hope for the future, attendees joined in a spirit of love, cooperation, and tolerance, with faith in their ability to work together to address social ills. Their single basic conclusion is that restoring the family is not up to any government or church. It is up to the people of every nation. In other words, it is up to us. And they return to their communities changed, determined to make a difference in the years ahead.